Coming live from the bricks where they wildin'. Big P, lil' mama couldn't stop smiling. Drippy, we be draped in design. They been weak, all up solid.
The reason why we talking about Kar Malone is because we just recently had All-Star Weekend in Utah. You know, every time they do All-Star Weekend in the city, whoever the brightest basketball player or players are that played in that city, they tend to host. The city is gonna host, but they tend to host. They'll have most of the superstars around them. And in Kar Malone's case, he played judge at the slam dunk contest, which I heard wasn't that good, but the white boy had some bunnies and a couple of tributes from the Utah faithful. So Kar Malone, it resurfaced that Kar Malone had this issue which is brought into question. Is it okay to be glorifying this man, right? Have you heard about the issue he had? So I got it for you right here. In 1983, Kar Malone was 20 years old when he impregnated his then 13-year-old girlfriend. So it looks like they declined to press charges, statutory rape charges, because obviously he would have been able to take care of the baby, and he likely would have gave their daughter a better life. So I guess when you think about why they wouldn't do so, this seems to be why. But it seems when he got his NBA contract, he then denied fathering that child. This child is Demetrius Bell, son of, I believe her name was Gloria Bell. I didn't write her name down, but I'm pretty sure it was Gloria Bell. Now, after he denied paternity of the child after going into the NBA, they sealed in an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement. Mm-hmm. So it allowed Kar Malone to go around and still not claim this child, and I guess he just paid them an amount of money or a certain amount of child support or whatever. Yeah. And so that's what this settlement allowed him to do. This is the stain that's on. This is one of the stains that's on his career that's got people talking about whether or not Kar Malone should be the kind of guy that they headline for an All-Star Weekend.
My opinion may be a little unpopular.
Okay.
For one, I think that's some sick ass shit. 20-year-old dating a 13-year-old. 20-year-old dating a 17-year-old is sick. A 13-year-old, sick ass shit. So I'm just gonna put that out there. That's some sick ass shit. I don't condone none of that. Mm-hmm. But now let's move on. Who the fuck knew about this? Nobody. Somebody had to go dig this shit up and put it out there and say, hey, this is the guy y'all rooting for.
In 1983, there was no internet. You know what I'm saying? So when he started coming to the forefront, and apparently you could probably find news articles or some shit about this, because it was a thing as he was entering the league. So you know they was all up in his shit. There just wasn't no social media. So now when people talking about Kar Malone, I'm pretty sure.
I don't know. Like, I'm not going. He did what he did in the league, and you can't erase that. Regardless of what you say happened in life, he did what he did in the league, and that's what they celebrate. They're not celebrating him as a personal man. I do think what he did was sick, but they ain't celebrating Kar Malone the guy. They're celebrating Kar Malone the basketball. What do you think if I tell you this comes right after they took ESPN and the NFL playmaker Michael Irvin, they took him off of the Super Bowl based on allegations at a hotel during that week. And without anything, they've cut ties. He hasn't been on First Take no more. They've cut ties with him over that. But the NBA didn't see reason to do. We got to recognize that basketball and football operate two completely different ways, and we've seen it in the past. Number one. But number two, we talked about the Michael Irvin thing a couple weeks ago, and I said, well, I don't know if he did that shit, because Super Bowl morning, that was the day we talked about it, actually. Yeah. We recorded Super Bowl, and that morning, they were giving him shout-outs, and we miss you, we wish you were here with us, all that. And I said, I don't think they would go that hard or give him shout-outs on national TV against the victim's word if it wasn't something that they didn't already know. They still haven't brought him back, haven't did nothing. So do they know more information now? Mm-hmm. Or you know what I'm saying? Is it that he actually did something? A lot of times it's about the optics, and I think that's what it's about here when we talk about Kar Malone. Is the optics are to a segment of the population that they just willing to let that stuff ride because he's a great player, and I think that. I think there's credence to that if that upsets a segment of the population, because it seems like the NBA is ignoring something that's become a hot topic. I don't think there's no credence in that shit at all, and this is why. Why? Because you can't find every single thing. You can't make everybody happy. For every Kar Malone, there's an owner. There's another basketball player. There's a trainer. There's a GM. There's a head coach that done some foul shit. Everybody done some foul shit.
Yeah.
So what we gonna do? Get everybody out of there?
As far as my opinion on it, I think, remember when we talked about the Jerry Jones situation and we was able to agree it was so long ago that that's a good amount of time to where he likely not the same person.
That shit was 60 years ago.
Yeah, and so this year was like 40. And so I haven't lived 40 years, but I can imagine that had I lived 40 years, I'd be a different person within those 40 years. So the idea that he might be the same exact person as then, I don't think that's likely. But I had to dig a little more into, because I had one opinion going into this, but then I had to really check out who Kar Malone is. On top of being the mailman, that nigga on the court, third on the all-time scoring list since LeBron went number one. On top of being that guy and the man in Utah, this dude that's not the only time he's denied his child. So it looks like I found another case where just before that, at 19 years old, he denies fathering the twins, Daryl and Cheryl Ford. Now, those names might be familiar to some people because Cheryl Ford went on to become a WNBA Hall of Famer. And eventually, in 1998, he addresses them and he admits that he may have handled the situation wrong without actually apologizing here. So this seemed to be a thing. Back when he was that age, it seemed like he might have been running around wild and denying his kids. So
I don't give a fuck about that, though.
I look at that a certain way because I couldn't deny my kids.
Yeah, but how many deadbeats are in the NBA, bro?
I want to talk about Kar Malone, and I'm putting together why I might think this of him now because of a collection of situations. Now, his son, Demetrius Bell, the first case we talking about, his son eventually met his father at 17, where Kar Malone had a conversation that he told him, it's too late for me to be your dad. You're going to have to figure this out on your own. And so they were estranged for a while. Demetrius Bell went on to be an NFL lineman, started making his own money and did his own thing. He says as of 2018, they got a different kind of relationship and they talk almost every single day, which leans itself to the idea that somebody would likely change over a long period of time. I give him that benefit of the doubt, but when I look at this collection of incidents, there's also another incident here where I looked into this one. He had a falling out with Kobe towards the end of his tenure as a Laker. He had a falling out with Kobe after Kobe's wife called their house to invite his son Demetrius. She wanted to reach his son after it had became public that they had a relationship. She called to get him to come sit with them at a Lakers game, and Kar Malone allegedly started shooting his shot aggressively at Kobe's wife too. And now this ain't a 20-year-old Kar Malone. This is later on when he was ending his tenure as a Laker, which was closer to like 35, 36. This looked like a pattern of behavior that's not really respectable to a guy like me. I respect his level of play, but when I get this idea of who Kar Malone might be, I don't really like it. Now, I also do think that if they're just celebrating his accomplishments as far as him playing, which is likely what they were doing, then I think that should be totally in bounds. But if they care about optics like they tend to do, suspending Ja Morant, what they did with Kyrie.
That's not the same, though.
Well, these are all situations, and I can name a ton of situations in which they cared about the optics of the situation.
But this is why I say that don't matter. If we sticking to him, regardless of a baby or anything, him talking to an underage woman or a child, all right, we're going to deal with that, and now everything is on the table. Like, kick him out of here, don't celebrate him, don't woo-woo, whatever. I'm with that. Mm-hmm. Once you go past that and say, oh, he was a deadbeat or he didn't take care of this and that or whatnot.
Hold on. Because before you make that point, I want to say that was just me collectively trying to get an idea of who Kar Malone is, and that's not the public trying to cancel him for those things. But that's what I'm saying, it don't matter. Besides, if we want to bring up the old shit about him dating an underage girl, and that was his reputation to be a molester. If his reputation was to be a molester and then it looked like y'all hosting a molester or a pervert,
having a pervert host the NBA, then that's a conversation. But anything
I think that
after
was
that,
the conversation.
Yeah, and so I'll ride with that. Anything after that, I don't think matters. That goes hand in hand with hosting or anything like that. His character as a man, or as long as it wasn't harming anybody. Now, if he was known to be rude, obnoxious, and spitting on people or beating women, shit like that put people in harm's way, then yeah, don't represent that. But if he didn't do nothing, you just didn't like his moral stance, you just didn't like that he was a deadbeat, or you just didn't like woo woo, that don't got shit to do with the NBA.
That's a good point. Here's where I'm at with it. So when we go on here and we have to talk about something somebody did. If I don't know them, I want to look into their history. The same way a nigga walks into jail and everybody want to know what you here for and who you are, or the same way somebody hops on the rap scene and everybody wants to know about this person before, because you know people will not like you if you arrogant. I think after you not playing no more. After you're not playing no more, who you are is what makes what you're doing in a lot of cases next. Whether that's TV, whether that's being the headliner at the All-Star Weekend. And so
in that moment,
it might not. And even if it don't matter to nobody else, I want to know who this person is before I start talking about him. I want to know what people say about him, what the ambiance is, and the general idea of who this person is. Because when I go into this conversation with just the facts about, you know, his issue with the 13-year-old girlfriend, what instantly come to my mind is how much has he changed over the past, and what are people saying about him since then. And so when I dive into that, I'm looking at a dude who it seemed like he's got quite a few people who don't think that highly of him.
It's a little less personal for me though. If I'm saying I don't want to see him on TV broadcasting or what, I don't care how good his points is. If he a pervert, I don't want to see him broadcasting on TV. If he a deadbeat, I watch him broadcast on TV as long as he know what the fuck he talking about. It's not that personal to me. He hurt somebody being a pervert. I ain't trying to hear that shit.
I agree with you. The reason why I see it different than you is because I believe not claiming your kids, not raising your kids, I think that is directly hurting a child. And at this point, there was a 13-year-old mom who seems to have raised an NFL player by herself, and then here there's another mom who raised two twins.
I just don't think that should be. I don't think that should go hand in hand with your career.
You're right. It shouldn't go hand in hand.
It shouldn't go hand in hand with
the basketball career.
Yeah,
but I think when if Utah decides that they gonna give tribute or
but
at
they
least
only giving tribute for the basketball career.
Right. Maybe I'll take that out. I digress on that point. But when they decide they're gonna have him host these events and put him front and center, I think who you are at that point, he's not playing basketball.
But they only doing it because of his basketball career. If it wasn't for his basketball career, they not doing it because he was a hell of a journalist over the 20 years.
That's 100% true.
None of that.
That's 100% true.
They solely focusing on.